Welcome to Pods and Pies. We got some
Domino's. Yeah, one of these days we'll get a sponsor. Domino's probably won't be it. But this was kind of a last second. We like some other options, but yeah. I did 3 pizzas because I knew you were hungry.
Yes, starving.
Keep banging that drum. It'll happen, man.
I know. Yeah, that's right.
So we got Scott Rafferty on. Thank you for coming and joining us.
Thanks, of course. Stoked to be here.
And we got you aubergine.
Yeah.
Let's talk about why.
What was that? What did you say?
I said let's talk about why. Why I got him aubergine.
Oh, yeah.
Not pizza.
What you call it? What is that called?
That place is the restaurant is called aubergine.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. I was gonna say it looked like a salad.
Yes, but yeah, that's That's the place of it. The name. But tell us why you're not indulging in pizza.
Yes,
today. Because I think it's cool. I think because anybody that's coming on here that was if they've been on a diet, nobody's ever said anything to me. Yeah. They're just like, yeah, we'll eat, even if they do or don't, you know.
Yeah.
But you said no. I've got some stuff going on.
Yeah. So about back in September, I just kind of had this moment where I think a lot of people, I just gotten really comfortable working in the basement. And so I'd get in the basement. It's, usually around 7:15, 7 a.m. in the morning. I'd pop up for a snack at, maybe 11:30. I'd eat at 1, and then I'd go back to the basement. I'd work until 6:30. And then by the time, you get done with all the kids stuff, I was just totally worn out.
Oh, yeah.
And so back in September, I hit this point, and I just, from a health perspective, I was feeling as low as I'd been in a long time.
You're talking September 2020?
Yeah, September 2020.
Yeah.
I just kind of said, hey, look, I've done CrossFit before. I don't I don't feel like my body's ready for that. But I wanted to get back into going into the gym. And so somebody told me about a small pro gym up in Bountiful called Big John's Pro Gym. And they had, some big name bodybuilders and physique competitors that are working out of there. And it was just a small place. It's like an industrial park in Bountiful. So I started working out there, and it's become I go 6 days a week. I started working with the trainer, and she had me eating 7,000 calories a day for 4 months.
Now, is that because you wanted to kind of just bulk up a little bit and just start getting a little stronger? So that was the whole.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And because I do have some goals that I want to do from just a health perspective over the next year. And, we kind of worked out this plan that said, hey, look, even though you want to lose weight, drop pounds, and get to this kind of a physique, really the best thing to do is for you to just recomposition your body from, mostly fat to building just your muscle structure. And so for 4 months, we really focused on that 6 days a week, lifting heavy weights, pretty intense workout program. And then a couple weeks ago, she transitioned me to a almost 0 carb diet, so I could start dropping pounds. And so sure enough, I'm in a week and a half, I'm down 7 or 8 pounds. So
that's awesome.
So what was the difference between September and then just recently? I mean, what was your body? How did the body change?
Well, just you start going from your arms and your chest and your shoulders feeling kind of flabby to actually feeling.
Did
full.
you put on weight?
No, I haven't lost, up until this last 2 weeks, my weight's only fluctuated 5 pounds.
Really?
That's awesome.
So it was just total recomposition from higher percent body fat to lean muscle mass, and I've just been increasing lean muscle mass and dropping.
But your strength went up.
Strength went up a lot. Yeah.
So, crazy how the body.
Yeah.
Right. When it gets everything.
Yeah.
That it should get. Right. And you're eating 7,000 calories a day for 4 months.
But of good
calories. Yeah, exactly. And you fluctuated 5 pounds.
Yeah.
That's great. 7,000 calories. Mm-hmm. I think that's cool.
Dude, if I ate 7,000 calories, I would be 700 pounds. Well, granted, at least how I do stuff. Yeah. I mean, I'd never worked with a professional, which I know for a fact if I did and I committed to it, you'd probably see the same results. But
yeah. So for me, there are certain things that I feel like I'm really intelligent and smart around, and I can get my head around. The areas that I've just always struggled with are human physiology and nutrition. It's just when people start talking to me about macros and things like that, it's like talking a foreign language to me. So I literally my coach is here, you're going to make 8 cups of brown rice on Sunday night, and you're going to make this, and then you're putting this amount. So like, I don't have to think about it. So I just do all my meal prep. Because when it comes to nutrition, I'm just in complete, like, noob when it comes to that. So it's been an interesting learning process, and you start gathering some of the knowledge that, like, just kind of the old school bodybuilders in the gym. So they're talking, and mid you start to understand why, like, mid workout, you're working out for an hour and a half. Mid workout, they'll like go over there, they'll open up a can of tuna and just like eat a can of tuna right in the middle of a workout. I'm like, man, you guys are crazy, but
just the smell of that alone during a workout would just be like,
dude, have you smelled? It's like I've seen somebody open up a pack. It's like a package of smoked salmon.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. It was almost like a jerky thing, and it was. I mean, the smell was off the charts. It was super strong.
Yeah.
I mean, I like salmon, but it was pretty strong.
Yeah. So it's been a totally different phase for me in terms of just, again, like I'm in my upper 30s right now. Like, if I don't do it now, it's probably going to get more difficult to do it.
Oh yeah.
And so at this point, I was just like, okay. And then there was just like this moment. I'm not sure how when it was or what it was, but in September, that it was like, okay, let's do this. And it was like cold turkey from that point. So.
That's good, man. Not a lot of people can do that.
No.
Yeah, like really, just all of a sudden it hits them and they decide, and then they go cold turkey.
Yeah, and when it comes to this kind of stuff, I'm either an all in or nothing person. Like, there's no middle ground for me. It's like you have to be in, or you're like or else I'm going to go through the motions and actually not accomplish anything.
Yeah.
Well, good, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, sure.
So you are at Jane right now.
Mm-hmm.
Before we talk about them, because you guys have had a lot of cool things going on recently. Take us back to like your startup, because you said when you started talking, you said a thing that I started back in the day. So kind of take us where you started in your career, because I know that being in the people ops space right now, this is a brand new.
Yeah, this is not my normal.
Yeah, this isn't your thing. So yeah, let's go back
and you from here?
I'm from Bountiful. Okay. Yeah, and so kind of. A little bit back before that, I had, grew up in Bountiful, graduated from the U, just like your, middle of the pack communications degree person, just enough to graduate.
Oh, yeah.
And I had this idea. I was working at a nonprofit at the time, and I had this idea of like, hey, like, I remember I was talking to an executive in my capacity at the nonprofit. I was talking to an executive at a company who had he was a Harvard MBA, had worked at Bain, right? He talked to me about what management consulting was like, and I had this idea of like, I want to be a management consultant. And so I decided that I want to try to get my, like, I was super naive about it, because like nobody goes from like a communications grad working at a nonprofit to like an entry-level job at Bain or McKinsey. I tried, it didn't work, but in my quest, I got introduced to a small boutique firm in Philadelphia, and they were doing. Like, they were kind of one of those firms that would work alongside with the big firms to help do a lot of the change management and implementation process of the actual strategy work that was being done. And so I did that for a couple of years, and then I went to grad school up at the U full-time to get my MBA. And at that point, I knew I wanted to get into tech. And my whole reason going there was just to lower my tuition costs and my cost of living so that I could start something while I was in school.
Smart.
So... like as I'm finishing school there, I was kind of working on some startup stuff, and then a friend of mine was like, "Hey, I've got this guy over here who's working on something similar to what you're thinking. You guys should talk." And so he connected me to my at the time my co-founder, and we started a company called DemoChimp in 2013.
What was it called?
DemoChimp. It's now
DemoChimp.
Yeah, it's now called Consensus.
Okay.
They were down in
American Fork.
Yeah.
Yep. And we kind of rode that wave of that. There was kind of this wave of startup, like, just explosion. There was this wave of startups that were starting in 2013, 2014, because for the first time, like, there were actual, like, legitimate capital sources. Like, this was before Album became Album, and they were still peak ventures. Like, we were one of their first, like, official investments as a fund, right?
Okay.
And so it was just that first wave of like actual money coming into the state of Utah, and so we rode that wave, and then it was great. It was a B2B SaaS product doing sales and marketing automation technology, and then I left that in 2016,
Okay.
and then had always been kind of along the product track, working on product side of things and doing some biz dev, but largely product is where I had the most fun. And then the Jane opportunity came, and it was funny because after what had happened, the company that I was at had a merger that had fallen through, and it really put the company in a hole. And so the Jane guys came to me and they were like, "Hey, what do you think about people ops?" I was like, "No, bro, I'm good. Like, I've got this company over here that wants me to go work for them in product and lead product there. I'm good. I think I'm just gonna do that." But
did you know anybody there at the time?
At Jane, not really. I knew the founder of the company, and he had just made one introduction to the co-CEOs, and so I'd really just gotten to know the co-CEOs, Ryan Burton and JD Stice at the time, and it was a few months before, like, I talked to a bunch of mentors, I talked to some other folks, and I was kind of taking my time to find that next role. And I remember having a conversation with a good friend of mine who's like a really, really strong product leader and known figure. And he was like, "Dude, like, just think about how you could take your product mindset into people ops and change the game." He's like, and so from that was a moment for me that was like, hey, look, like a lot of what we do in people ops is not too dissimilar from what people do in product. Our end outcomes are the product that we're trying to produce, which is like a great experience of some sort.
Right.
In product, it's all about creating that amazing customer experience. In people ops, it's about creating that incredible user or employee experience. And so that was kind of the moment where things flipped for me. And I said, hey, look, like, let's take a stab at this. And I literally told myself, all right, I'll give this 18 months and then we'll see where we're at. And like at first I was just like, man, I'm going to go in there and do some of this stuff and we're going to see how that works. And then if it doesn't work out 18 months from now, I'll go find something new. But it's been a really interesting journey, especially as like we're starting to gain some steam and momentum over the last 12 months.
Okay. So maybe if you can explain, you start a company, co-found a company,
mm-hmm.
and then you transition. The next transition is into, again, not to sound, I don't know the right word, but you basically go to like an employee of the company, of a different company, right?
Yeah.
Instead of going and starting something else.
Yeah.
Like doing a new gig, a new startup. Was that? I imagine that was on the table. You were considering stuff like that, and then.
Yeah, all the companies I was talking to at the time were all startups.
Yeah.
And so,
it's like you want to find a startup
mm-hmm.
that you can join that team.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to downplay like an employee, but it just usually someone that does do that, they kind of are looking for another thing they're going to do, right?
Yeah. So that's a really interesting point. There are two kind of things at play there when I was doing that. There were a few startups I was talking to, and I was really fortunate to be a part of the early team at Divvy that helped like really launch their first alpha product, and I led their product group there.
Okay.
And the thing is, like, for me, that experience and seeing that group of people was kind of, for me, the gold standard for what I wanted to find in another startup. Like, there was no doubt in my mind that Divvy was going to become like $1 billion company. There was no doubt. Like, you just walked in and you saw the caliber of the people that were in there,
the
quality of the work that they were doing, the kind of problems they were solving, not just trying to solve, but like we were solving problems that to that point, nobody in the entire financial industry had figured out yet. Right. And so as I started looking at other startups after Travel Pass, I wanted to find that same energy and that same kind of thing. And I just couldn't find anything that really got me that same kind of like juiced up feeling of like, this is it. Like, this is totally it. And so that was at play. Is like, I didn't really feel like I didn't find a place that really hit that note for me. And then the second one is that I always admired companies like Pluralsight, and I always admired those companies that were just going through that kind of like growth. and being like, man, I wonder what that's like, you know? And at the startup phase, you may never ever experience that, right?
Exactly.
And so there was a part of me that was like, I really was passionate about the startup thing, but then there was a part of me that was super curious what it would be like to jump into a company that has 100 employees and take them to 200 and take them to 300 employees and to scale and to learn how to scale and build that skill set of understanding how to scale. And so that's ultimately, as I was going through that period of time, I saw that. And when Jane came along, I said, hey, look, here's the opportunity to try that new skill set and to do something I've never done and to see how I can do. See, like the one thing I kind of talk about with my team is like, you know, I think one of the most important things you can do is put yourself in a difficult position where you've kind of put yourself behind the 8 ball and then just see if you can hang. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you've ever played sports, professional sports, or competitive sports, but like, I remember growing up playing soccer. Like, as I moved through from the rec to AA to AAA to club team, that kind of stuff. Every time I'd move up, there was always this moment where you're like, man, I wonder if I can hang with these guys, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of how I thought about this with Jane. Was like, I'm going to do this, and we're going to see if I can hang. Like,
how early on did you join the team?
At Jane?
Yeah.
Jane had been around for 7.5 years, and they were already a very successful company, but they were kind of, from a headcount perspective, from a scale perspective, they'd kind of been in this like 115 to 140 employee like range for about 1.5 years. And so, you know, it was just kind of one of those things. I was like, all right, let's go in there and see what we got, you know, and see if we can hang. And you know, once I got in there, it became very apparent that there was just a lot of work to do in that company to really set it up to be ready for scale.
That's cool.
Yeah.
When did you join?
I joined in August of 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
2018, and you just still have the one office right here in Lehigh. Because I guess the office that I visited was just kind of on that old frontage road. I don't even whatever it is now, right? Well, I guess it still is kind of that frontage road right there.
Yeah.
We're in Thanksgiving Point.
We're in the same building as MX.
Okay,
so,
that's right. That's
and,
right.
And
just different floor.
And we've got what I think is probably the most beautiful office in the entire state of Utah. It's pretty.
Dude, it's
pretty
amazing.
Sweet.
Did you get? I think we went it through. Did you get? Was there a spot in there where you guys have give haircuts?
Yeah.
Yes.
We had a barbershop.
What? Yes,
yeah.
Dude, there's a barbershop.
We had a barbershop.
Are you guys hiring?
So we don't.
That's amazing.
We don't. We had.
Yeah.
So you know,
cool.
it's interesting is you think about things like that, like barbershop. We have a gym where we'd have yoga, and you know, with COVID and the office shutting down, all that stuff obviously went away. But it was like the story of Jane is really quite interesting. That like it was a story that was showering a lot of employees with a lot of these things, and yet like employee satisfaction was still super low, right? People like, and there was a lot of different reasons for that.
That's so interesting.
But the thing is, when we started focusing on the right things, even when we cut out those things and did what we can to adapt to the current situation, like employee morale was still going up.
So give us an example, because I'm super curious about this. You know, I mean, you just there's so many cool places, cool offices, and then you build an office with cool thing like a barbershop or you know the kitchen and you know big cafeteria, whatever. Because in your mind you think, oh, this translates to a culture, and people are going to love it, right?
Yeah.
It's not always filled with dreams.
Yeah.
And you know, build it, they're going to come and they're going to love it. But it's interesting you say that because we've had multiple conversations here at our office about, I mean, really, what do people like? How do you know what really the you know, not even majority, but what people value? I mean, what do they really like? If they're satisfied with the environment, or I mean, is it really people? Is it amenities?
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be a balance. But that's so curious that you said that.
Yeah. So.
Do you guys do surveys?
Yeah, we started doing surveys, and I'll tell you, like, it's kind of funny. We just
is it scary to do surveys with your employees?
If we're not anymore.
Okay.
So when we did our first employee NPS survey, it was part of this. It's kind of a funny story. It was June 2019. We did this in the Utah Business Best Places to Work, and we had a pretty good response rate. And so we're like, oh great, this is awesome. And when the results came back, the person said, your guys' eNPS was so low, you don't qualify. And that was a huge wake up. Like, because we had been doing a lot of things to really make some, because they're, you know, backing up in 2018, like 2019 was a really weird year for Jane. Like Jane was a company that was having steady growth, and then in 2019 it just plateaued, right? And now we're back to growth, but we had this really funky year in 2019 where all of a sudden, like, the whole idea of Jane being this Camelot where it's always up and to the right, because it had been like that from the first month, kind of that fantasy was kind of shattered, right? And so June 2019, we get this report back from the Utah Business Best Places to Work, and our ENPS score was in the 20s, which is insanely low. and so we went through the feedback and all this kind of stuff, because and we were like, wow, this is amazing. Because what we realized is that in 2018 that there were some real cultural problems at Jane. And we were in the middle of the process of how do we shift a culture at this company from that of being like a nice company that showers its employees with love to a performant culture, right? Because in my opinion, it's almost impossible to be a primarily or dominantly nice culture and also be performant. It's easier to be a performant culture filled with really nice, cool people, right?
Okay.
And so Jane was always a nice culture. It was a nice place to work. There were no consequences for non-performance. There was really no recognition or incentive for high performers. It was just a nice place to work where you could go get fat on the company pantry, and like the Jane 15 is a real thing. Like our pantry was so stocked.
That was a thing.
That was a real thing. We called it the Jane 15. and the thing is, all of that is wrapping paper if people aren't engaged in their work, right? And so we the beginning of 2019, end of 2018, beginning of 2019, we set out the strategy for how do we change the culture at Jane to be a performant culture. And so when you talk about like why you would have all these beautiful things and no, like a really low employee satisfaction, it was because of a couple of things. One, like there was really no incentive for people to do great work. Like if you were a great engineer and you watched your peers go into the game room, which we have this amazing game room, and go play for 3 or 4 hours while you're busting out amazing code, and they're not delivering like the code they need to cut. I mean, how demotivating is that, right? Yeah. In that first year, we lost a lot of amazing developers, and their number one reason why is because like, hey, I'm surrounded by a bunch of people who don't care, who aren't really putting in work and that aren't producing outcomes, and like doesn't seem to matter, right? And so what we started working on was one, building the foundation for creating a culture of performance. And the first foundation was built just like a leadership team. Like, so Jane had not had a senior leadership team for the first 8 years of its company.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah,
we had.
I mean, obviously, there's. Was it like just undefined, or just like this? So we just assumed roles and.
Yeah. So it was there had never been really a direct attempt to build a level of VPs who were functional experts in the area that they were great at, right? Okay. So the first one and like I wasn't even a functional expert in the area where I was at, but I understood kind of where the gaps were in the industry or in the business, and I said, okay, these are the things that we need to change. And so, we brought on our first VP, which was her name is Megan Johnson. She's our VP of marketing. She's phenomenal. She came to us. She was the general manager of KSL Classifieds, incredible marketing genius, right? And so, but it was kind of her and me, and we were kind of on our own little island. And then we had the co-CEOs, and then we had the chairman of the board, and it was just there was not really this real strong layer of leadership, because like how can you like people feel like they have a leader that they can line up behind and perform for if they don't actually have like a functional leader for their department, right? So the first layer for us was, or the first step was really creating that leadership layer within Jane, right? And as soon as we started doing that, what we started to see is employee satisfaction go up, because actually people had a voice, they had a place to go, they had avenues and pathways for their concerns and ideas or aspirations to go through. So that was the first reason, is that there was like leadership, like leadership structure matters, right? And making sure that having the people in place from a leadership perspective that will hold accountability not just to themselves, but to the teams that they're producing the outcomes that they need to produce, that matters. The second reason is that is that because Jane had been a nice culture for so long, we had what I call kind of like this general malaise within the employees, which is we had different pockets of toxicity in the employee base. We also had pockets of people and employees that were there to just collect a paycheck, and then we had another, and then I consistently say this to my team and to people at Jane. It's like, look, Jane's responsibility, our reason for existing is not to Jane isn't in business to create jobs at Jane. We're in business to produce a product in a customer's hand. Like that's why we exist. It's not to produce a job at Jane. That's not what we do. And it's interesting as I talk to other business leaders, they think, yeah, that's it. Like people start to forget what we actually do.
Right.
We produce, trendy, fashionable clothes and home goods at people's front door. That's what we do. And so, as we start to really align people to this idea that here's what we actually do, we're about performance, and now there's accountability. And by the way, there's a zero tolerance for toxicity in this business. What we started to see is that the level of employees that we started getting in started going up, and all of a sudden, like performers started doing what they do best, which is perform. Like, Did
you see any people weed out? Like,
oh yeah,
it's kind of like, man, this
how's
is
that? That's crazy. What? And when you say zero tolerance for toxicity, I mean, because that's an interesting term because it could mean so many different. I mean, there's so many different levels of this, right?
Yeah.
Was that something that was defined, or was it just like if you use that word enough, they get it, they understand what that means?
Yeah, last February, we had just gotten, because we had that plateau year, we did a reduction of force last February 2020. And after that, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the app Blind, right? It's that app that is the anonymous app that employees use to like talk about the companies. It's kind of like a subreddit for companies.
Cool.
And it's all anonymous. We started to have employees that were being bullied by their other employees on Blind.
Anonymously. Okay. Yes.
We had specific employees that were being called out by name, being bullied by other employees.
And you don't know who's calling them out. But they're calling them out by name.
And so we had to sit down as a company, and our new CEO, Talib Noor Mohammed, who's just phenomenal, sat down and said, look, there's a zero tolerance for this. If I find out who you are, like, you're gone. If this is how you really, truly feel, it's time for you to leave. And, we just made it very, very clear that who we are as Janesters, as we call ourselves, are people who are kind, who are respectful, but who deliver outcomes and results.
How many employees did you have at this time? Do you recall?
Well, we went from 157 down to 123.
And that was kind of in
that was our layoff, yeah. And then
was that before the COVID, or was that due to
that was before COVID.
Because COVID, I imagine, might have increased a lot. I mean, it probably went through the roof for you people at home. Anyway, we can talk about that later.
Keep going. COVID was a wild ride.
Yeah.
But what happened is, like, what we saw is, like, kind of those people that we were concerned about started to weed themselves out. And part of it was that they could no longer kind of hide in the shadows. They knew that we knew what was going on. And we made it very, very clear to them that, like, look, these are not the kind of people we are. And these are not the kind of things that we tolerate. And soon enough, we had, like, just what we've ended up with is, like, a really, really healthy workforce that I think COVID helped, by the way. I think that there was something to taking people away from each other physically that reduced the amount of drama and issues that were going on. But also, if you look across our workforce, like, there are very few people in this company that I look at that I'm like, yeah, this person's not a top performer. They're like, we're filled with our company. We haven't grown as quickly as we probably could have from a headcount perspective. But that's because we go out there looking for absolute top performers. And whether or not in Utah, or we have employees in Austin, we have an entire workforce up in Toronto. It's just been a dramatic change. And it's like when you work with a pro's pro, I don't know, like back in my consulting days, working on the East Coast was a big wake-up call for me, because like you work with people who are pros, and they're about getting the mission done. They're about producing the outcomes and the outputs. We start injecting those kind of people into the company, it starts really elevating everybody's performance. And so we just did our last ENPS back in December, and we scored an 89, which for a company, it's a huge turnaround, but also for industry is huge. It's an awesome score. And so it's been almost a 2-year process of culture change at Jane, and one that like my team, me, the leadership at Jane has repeatedly gotten kind of kicked in the teeth at times, particularly like on review sites and things like that. But we knew what we needed to accomplish, and we stuck to it. And now I think we're at a point right now where we have a company that's just like all the right people doing all the right things.
That's great.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good story, man. That's just so intriguing to me. I mean, I don't like talking about our company usually on these podcasts, but I mean, we grow in revenue, but that doesn't translate to the number of employees, right? And we grow very, very slow with employees. Yeah. And it is much easier when, you're only adding a couple a year, and you really can kind of handpick these and know, like, okay, this is probably a good bet. And then everybody else here has been here for years, slow turnover. But man, when you get into these type of situations where it's 100 plus and you're growing or whatever, man, those are the problems. It'd be fun to try to tackle, but it's not something I think anybody was like, oh, I want to solve these. You just don't want the problems ever. But then when they happen, you got to figure it out.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, especially when you're talking about culture change, right? The majority of people don't want things to change.
It's not changing like an alarm code here. I mean, we're talking
exactly.
It's just, dude, that's a. I mean, like you said, 2 years.
Yeah, it's been about 2 years, and culture change is the most difficult because it's the one that you get the most resistance on, right? You can change policies, you can change like budgets, you can change all sorts of like organizational structures, but the second you start looking at culture and pushing people towards the right direction, that's where you start getting the most pushback. And so we knew going into it that we were kind of going to have it was going to be a tough road to hoe for a while, and it took about 18 months before like we really hit. It was like last year around August where like I was talking to Karen, who's my director of people ops, and who's, by the way, the most phenomenal director of people ops ever, and I was like, hey, like, have you had any like drama related employee relations issues come your way the last little while? She's like, no. I'm like, me neither. And we're like, holy crap.
Good sign.
And we just kind of sat there on Zoom staring at each other for like 5 seconds, like,
doing something right.
Either something's really, really right or something's really, really wrong.
Right, yeah.
But the thing is, what we have is like a really great culture. We've got great leadership, and now I feel like we have employees who are surrounded by the conditions and the things they need to like see themselves into the future that we're trying to create and to understand what their role is in that.
Yeah.
I keep moving.
So are you anticipating or expecting major growth? Because you guys did just get funding, right?
Yeah.
40 million.
40 million from trading partners down
so
in
let's
Austin.
let's talk that first question, then we'll back up to that.
Yeah, so we look at growth a little bit different. Like, I mean, we've been a bootstrapped company from the very beginning.
Is this
right?
the first? Is this the
This
first
is the first
outside
round of
money you've
funding.
taken?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So 9 years, we've done almost 9 years. We've done over $1 billion in sales on the platform since the beginning, and this is the first money we've ever taken from the outside. We still kind of have that bootstrappers mentality when it comes to growth, which is like we expect growth, a lot of growth this year in revenue, top line, and EBITDA, but growth for like on the head count, I think we're still going to keep it pretty conservative because
you have the right individuals doing the right job.
That's right. And for example, we're willing to go hire somebody in New York who's going to cost twice as much as somebody in the same role here in Utah, because the price for a New York person or a San Francisco person is much higher. We're willing to pay that because we know what they're able to produce, right? And so, again, for us, it's really less about the number of bodies in the company and more about getting the right people in the most critical roles. So right now, it's like just like everybody else, engineers, hiring more engineers. Yeah, everybody needs engineers, and so do we.
Is it a difficult undertaking to just be able to deploy that much money? I mean, because obviously it's like, well, we can't. I mean, the whole idea is to spend that to make yourself, to be $100 billion company, right? Real revenue, right? Yeah. But dude, that's a lot. I mean, it's like when you're not going to add like hundreds of employees or offices and all these things. So I mean, that just seems like a crazy.
Yeah. What's that going into?
Where's all that money going to? So, to answer that question, one of the differences, and this was a big shift for me going from I'd been in the B2B SaaS world to being in the consumer world. Yeah. Paid acquisition is a game. Like using those dollars to acquire new customers and to keep your existing users engaged takes a lot of money. Yeah. And so a lot of those resources will go into fueling growth this year. One of the things about Jane is that our brand is very, we are not geographically diverse place. Like if you think about where our customers primarily reside, it's like kind of Utah, Arizona, but really the South, Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, all along the South.
Diversified across the country.
Yeah. And Jane as a brand has been very, for lack of a better term, monochromatic, right? Like if you went onto the Jane website, all the models looked the same. They all looked like, that women that were 25 to 40, blonde, Christian from the South, right? And but that was all actually kind of by design, because that's like who our founders, that's who they knew, and that's like the aesthetic that they understood.
And you knew the target audience, responded to that.
Yeah. But so I just say that kind of not necessarily like flippantly, but if you think about the audience that really loves Jane, they also love things like Chip and Joanna Gaines, right? That kind of crowd, right?
Okay.
So, but what you don't see is our customers in urban areas and more metropolitan areas. So like the New Yorks of the world, the Chicagos, LAs, Atlantas, the Philadelphias, that we're not strong there. And we're growing there. We've just launched our first ever brand campaign the company's ever had, which is a national brand campaign that's taking the brand more broad. And big brand expansion costs a lot of money.
That's a lot, yeah. Marketing brand expansion. Yeah,
so when you talk about where that money is going, a lot of it is around building brand and fueling growth. And then we are, hiring and growing in the headcount side of things. But we take a very, from a first principle standpoint, we always think about systems and processes to scale rather than people first. So like whenever we have a need or a problem or a gap in the workforce, we first look at tools and systems and processes and go through a whole process of figuring that out before we say, all right, well, we actually need somebody to come in and do that. So so headcount will still grow. I mean, last year we went from, again, 123 to, we're at 179, 180 now. So we added almost 60 people in the last 9 months. Okay. And the interesting thing is, of those people, the majority of them are actually not in Utah. They're remote workers. So we're now starting to become spread all over the U.S. and up in Canada.
Exciting times.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, I think that's kind of been one of the trends is, since everybody's been working from home, is people are not just only looking for talent in only Utah now.
Yeah.
Right. If you're a Utah-based company, you're not only looking for Utah. They've been able to say, you can work from home? Perfect. You're so qualified. We want you.
I remember the early days of the pandemic. There was a headline from The Onion that was that said millions of companies who said that remote work was impossible are suddenly about to find out remote work is possible.
Yeah, exactly.
and we were no exception. We were very much like a butts and seats, type of place before. But now, I mean, our employees and our leaders have proven that they can produce amazing results regardless of where they're from. So, we like our head of merchandising is over in the UK, or our head of commercial ops who oversees merchandising and seller acquisition and seller support, and seller is more the sales function of the business. He's over in the UK, and we have some other people that are going to be joining that are, all over the world. So,
do you have to pay for them to get haircuts? Individually?
No. The haircut thing.
In-office haircuts.
This is actually a really interesting discussion, though, because
make sure it's like, hey, everybody that works there.
They're like, crap, dude. Just because I'm not in the office, I don't get free haircuts. Well, that's bullcrap.
Yeah. So you know that comes up. things like that. Like,
you're going to create resentment. I don't get the Jane pantry. I want 15 pounds.
Yeah.
I don't get an extra 15 pounds. I'm not even going in the office.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's actually an interesting point because, like, when we hit our plateau in 2019, like backing up a little bit, when I showed up at Jane in 2018, they were spending anywhere between $15,000 and $25,000 a month in food on the pantry or on meals.
Dude, I recall they had like a company that would deliver Costco.
Yeah.
Was it like a Costco delivery service? And this is before
it was
pandemic.
it was weekly and sometimes twice a week, right?
Yeah.
They were eating so much food, and it was fine. But like when we hit that plateau in 2019, we started cutting back all those extra expenses. And you got a little grumbling, but for the most part, like the people that were there to do the right things were just like, okay, whatever. And it's interesting that if I think back about the people who were the most vocal in terms of when we had to cut budget and reduce costs and all that kind of stuff, the most vocal about their displeasure of it, none of them are at the business anymore. And so, again, when you talk about like the culture of a business, you can shower them with food and you can shower them with, gifts and love and that kind of stuff. But if there isn't like a baseline of performance that, like, for me, not like it just doesn't work. Like you're just not going to have a really truly performant culture and team. And then it doesn't matter. Like you can shower them with all that stuff, and they're still not going to be super satisfied with work. So yeah, it all starts with leadership, management, and then having the expectations of performance. And now like we still shower our employees with really great love and lots of stuff. It's just like now we just have like really, really great people in-house.
Yeah. I legit, if I was like, had a toss up between a couple jobs and one of them had a barbershop down in like the office.
It was such a good recruiting point, especially for engineers. Because like engineers, we take them on the tour of the office and they're like, wait, you have a barbershop here? Like, yeah, you can get your hair cut. Yeah. and it was a huge
Sign me up.
But yeah, with the pandemic, that all went away just like that.
Yeah.
So.
Freaking pandemic.
Shoot.
What's been the most surprising thing for you coming from co-founding companies and getting into the HR space, the people ops space? What's been the most surprising thing? Something that's like open your eyes. You're like, holy cow! I think this is ridiculous, or
it doesn't have to be a surprise good.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Well, a surprise. A surprise good, and surprise bad. Okay, surprise bad. Not bad, but I was not prepared. Like, when you're in a product role, like, you have a very small set of people who have a strong opinion about how you do your job and how you produce things in the organization. When you're in people ops, every person in the company has an opinion about your job. And I was not prepared for that. I didn't understand that, right? So I was used to a world where, like, I could ship products. I could watch the user metrics come through and see, all right, we did the right things, we didn't do the right things. Like, you can see through the user engagement metrics.
Yeah.
In people ops, and it's really, those are the people that really matter. Like, people can have opinions, but the data doesn't lie. Like, that's what it is. In people ops, everybody in the business has an opinion about your job, and I hadn't thought about that. And at first I wasn't prepared for it, but then you kind of develop that thick skin of like, oh, okay, like everybody has their own specific experience that they bring to it and expectations that they bring to it. And that's just different than what we might be doing or what my experience and expectations are. So that was one that was not necessarily bad, but it was an eye opener for me. That just like stepping into that role where like literally our work impacts 179 people, you know, rather than just a subset of users.
And their families.
And their families.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. That was kind of the more eye-opening thing. The biggest surprise from a good perspective is just like how satisfying it is to see a company go through that transaction and be on the other side and just be like, this is it. Like, like I have never felt this level of satisfaction, like after like getting through a product ship or a project ship. Then when you start, like when we got our ENPS score in December, I was just like, oh, this is what we've been trying to do for 2 years and we're getting there. We're there. And that level of satisfaction is so high, right? And then the second part is the other one, the surprise that's good is how good it feels to see your team when you're crushing it and we're doing really, really well and doing all the right things, just to see how much they become like a valued part of the people at the company. So I think HR and people ops gets kind of like my experience has kind of been unique. I don't know what it's like in the rest of the world, and I actually don't really do a whole lot of like HR stuff because I'm mostly just focused on what it is that we're trying to accomplish and just saying, all right, what's the best way that we can use kind of what I know from product perspective. But it is so satisfying when you see your team like become truly, truly valued and just like proactively brought into things by people throughout the organization, right? That typically doesn't happen, from what I understand, in most HR groups, unless they absolutely have to be like, yeah, let's bring in so-and-so from HR, right? Yeah. Like at this point, like they look to us as like, all right, we're going to do this. What have you guys got? Like they've started to view us more as like trusted advisors in the organization. And so watching my team and the team members on my team go through that transition of being like kind of some of them have been there for a while, going from like kind of that more tactical support role to more of a trusted advisor role has been super satisfying. Really, really satisfying. Because then at that point, you know what you're doing is empowering really, really strong people to go into the organization and be like leaders to other leaders. Yeah. And that's been super satisfying. I would say another good surprise for me was just the ability to, and I never thought that I wouldn't, but having impact on an organization. Everybody says they want to have impact on the organization, and I don't know if at another company in the same role I would have had the same level of impact I've been able to have. But I think like at the time and the place that I jumped into Jane, I was the right person to push it through some kind of gnarly transitions. Yeah. Right. And so that has allowed me to like that personally, that amount of impact that I feel like I've been able to have at the company has been really, like, from a career standpoint, it's been one of the top, like, most satisfying things that I've experienced, because it's been great.
That's awesome. Okay, tell me, I mean, just, you got to get real here. Mm-hmm. Give me the honest answer. What?
Which, by the way, if you talk to anybody that I work with, or even some of my friends, that's me.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
What is just the absolute worst part? Like, did you have to jump in on, like, payroll or benefits? Or is there anything you're just like, dude, I hate this. I don't want to do this? Because you weren't dealing in that.
No,
before.
Because I wasn't, and I don't still. Okay. I had a great team in place that was dealing with all of that.
Okay.
And so I didn't really have to. The absolute worst part is how slow things take. Because when you're a product, or you're in engineering, or you're marketing, you can do something and almost immediately see the output and track to see the progress you're making. If you're in marketing, you run an ads campaign. You can launch that campaign. You can watch the numbers roll in and say, all right, am I getting the right ROAS on this campaign? Did it work or did it not? Like in other disciplines, feedback can take weeks, and people ops feedback can take months or years. Yeah. And that is the absolute worst part of it.
Like a total culture change, man.
Because for like, years. Trust me, like after, I remember at a certain point in 2019, after our really, really low ENPS score, I read some reviews on Glassdoor, which was like the worst thing I could have done at that time. And just thinking like, man, what am I doing? Like, everybody hates me. and like, I just remember having a conversation with the CEO, Ryan, at the time, Ryan Burton. And I'm like, dude, I thought I had a thick skin, but I don't know if I can do this. And he was just like, dude, you've got a plan. You're going through it. You knew it was going to suck. Just stick to it. Yeah. Right. And I was like, all right, man. And so not being able to see things turn, like, it's like, it's kind of like seeing it turn degree by degree rather than just like a quick U-turn.
It's like watching paint dry.
Yeah. And so sometimes you put stuff into the organization and you have no clue how to really truly measure the impact that it's having. You hope that you're doing the right things. Well, you have a position or a theory that you're doing the right things, and then you put it out into the organization. If you can figure out a way to measure it, we measure it, but most things that we do from a program standpoint, you can't really measure. And so that like lack of like transparency into the outcomes that you're producing, and just the time that it can take.
Right.
Like 2 years for a culture change is about right. But man, that's a long 2
feels,
years.
Yeah,
it feels like 4.
Yeah,
you know?
I bet.
So that to me is probably the worst, the most difficult part of this field is just you don't always have that direct feedback loop that tells you whether or not you're doing it is that you're doing is the right thing.
Yeah, interesting. So tell me who your new CEO is. You mentioned his name.
Yeah, his name's Talib Nur Muhammad.
Where did he come from?
So he was, prior to this, he was the chief growth officer of a company called Farfetch, which is one of the largest luxury marketplaces in the world. Farfetch.
Farfetch, mm-hmm. Okay.
Architected a huge portion of their international growth and their growth there. He was one of the guys that helped run the Vancouver Olympics. This guy's just an incredible dude, and knows, on top of being like, just knows more about marketplaces than like I'll ever know. He's also like one of the nicest, most eloquent dudes you've ever seen, and like he's just genuinely cares about people, is a person who is easy to follow and work with, doesn't tolerate non-performance from anybody, including senior leaders, but also is just like one of the he's an absolute joy to work with. He's a great dude. And he's also a guy that's really well known in the investment community because he was one of the early guys at HomeAway that sold to Expedia for X amount of billions of dollars. Yeah. And so he's a known entity in the investment community. He's a known entity, and he's well known in the kind of the e-commerce marketplace world. And for what we needed at Jane, he was the right guy at the right time, and he's been crushing it.
When did he come on?
He started December of 2019.
Okay.
So he hopped into a company that was plateauing, but he saw a vision for what he knew we could accomplish if we had the right kind of like best-in-class practices and the right kind of philosophy around marketplaces. And he said, I can do this. And so he hopped in. It's been a game changer for the business.
That's good.
Yeah, it's been an incredible ride.
Really good.
Usually we're not up against a time. But
you're up against a time?
I am up against a time.
Okay.
We usually don't like limit it to an hour. Mm-hmm. But around 1-ish. I don't even know how far away we are.
We're at 1.
We are.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So
I hate saying that. Just make sure we're not going way over.
No,
1.
you're good. Yeah.
Yeah. So you guide me. I cleared my calendar.
I know.
Okay.
It's a little. That's not how we roll here. Like we usually. I mean, it's going to usually about an hour or so. We talk about. I think we gotta.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we do have a few things here.
Yeah.
That are not work related.
Love it.
Or life related.
All right. Cool. So it's a rapid fire thing. Is that what it is?
It's good.
Thank you, by the way, for
your
insight and stuff. That's awesome. It's been great. Okay, so I have 3 songs. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to read the lyrics. You just got to tell me who it is.
Okay.
Are you a big music guy? Do you have a genre that you?
90s rap.
90s rap.
Dang it. I have no 90s rap on here.
Then we might not be.
So this one, I think this is one that's...
And from my high school and college days, Dave Matthews Band. So
Dave
it's like this
Matthews
weird...
Okay. All right, so this first one, it's either going to be a softball or it's going to be like, I have no idea what the hell you were talking about. I don't think there's any middle ground on this one, okay?
I'm game, let's do it.
Okay. Pardon me. Are you Aaron Burr, sir?
Oh, Hamilton.
Okay.
Hold on, what?
Hamilton.
Hamilton what? Oh, the play.
The play, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
hell. Okay.
This is the first.
My kids can sing that whole album from the beginning to the end. Okay. Like, we listen to that so much.
Yeah.
That is the fastest
anybody has ever got. Yeah.
The correct guess we've ever had.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It was either going to be.
That's just boom.
Got it, or I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
Hamilton's playing in our house usually at least once a day.
Okay.
That's great.
I love it. Okay, next one. Not 90s rap. All my life, I've been searching for something. Something never comes, never leads to nothing. Nothing satisfies, but I'm getting closer to the prize at the end of the rope.
Hold on.
All night long, I dream of the day when it comes around and it's taken away.
I have no clue.
Oh my gosh, dude! Hold on.
Can I get a genre?
It starts like
rock.
All my life I've been such a
Yep.
I don't know, but I can't remember how the tune goes.
I am.
Such a
Nope.
Yep.
Nope. I'm nothing.
Foo Fighters.
Oh yeah, that's a real fast
I'm,
song. Yeah.
I'm one of those like pretend Foo Fighter fans, right? I'm the guy. I'm more of a Dave Grohl fan than I am a Foo Fighters fan. Like I love the dude, right?
Yeah.
Like, as a dude, like he's one of those people that's. I love that he's in the world, right?
Right? Yeah.
I really think that is 90% of Foo Fighter fans are exactly what you said. They love Dave Grohl, but I think that they're just not that good. I've seen them twice in concert, and every time, both times, I think they're really not that good.
All right, like I'm kind of one of those like pretend Foo Fighter fans.
I like all their good songs.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Okay. Last one. Where I come from isn't all that great. My automobile is a big piece of crap. My fashion sense is a little whack. You got it.
It's on the tip of my tongue.
And my friends are just as screwy as me. I didn't
21
go
Pilots.
to boarding school. Preppy girls never looked at me. Why should
Teenage
they?
Dirtbag.
No, but you're getting kind of in that genre.
It's like a Weezer song.
Ding. Weezer.
Dude, that's good.
I ain't got nobody, nothing in my pocket.
What's the okay?
Beverly Hills. That's
Beverly Hills,
where
yeah.
I want
Weezer.
to be.
There you go.
Dude, I don't know.
I was like,
the
lyrics
if
were
you've
just like
heard it.
these
That
are
was
like
good, man.
this is like Dirtbag, Teenage Dirtbag.
Yeah,
it's
kind of like that same.
Yeah.
For kind of saying right off the bat that you don't know much besides 90s rap, dude, that was good.
Yeah, I've got a really great knowledge of a really narrow like shallow knowledge of a lot of things.
Yeah.
So more of a
That
mile wide inch deep guy when it comes to that stuff.
Okay. All right, so we end everyone with some would you rather questions.
Okay.
Only rule is you got to answer.
What's up?
So the only rule is you got to answer.
Okay.
We have one that we ask
Oh yes,
every time.
Okay, so Tiger Woods and Barry Bonds. Would you rather have Barry Bonds take his bat and swing as hard as he can right to the middle of your back? Right, home run swing, like he's putting it over right field into the bay. Okay. Or Tiger Woods takes his driver out and swings as hard as he can right at your shin.
So both of them are massive skeletal damage.
Oh yeah, no,
like
There's no good
I'll
answer.
go by that old quote that like a back injury will change your personality. So I'll take the shin. I'll take Tiger Woods in the shin
Okay.
because the back I've had a back injury and it changes your personality.
Yeah. Okay.
And you could possibly be paralyzed.
Yeah, that's true. I'll
Yeah.
take the shin.
Absolutely. Okay. Would you rather be a genius and know everything or be amazing at any activity that you tried?
I've already come to terms with the fact that I'm just not like a specialist in many things, but I'm more of a generalist. So I'll take that. Like I just be really good at everything.
Be good at everything you tried.
Like I think everybody knew that kid in high school that they didn't know. There was this kid that I went to high school with. His name was Jeff. And Jeff he's on top of being like a really, really nice good dude. Literally everything he did, he was great at. And I kind of looked at that. I was like, dang. Like
I envy those dudes.
And like he was just super athletic, and he'd never played soccer in his life. And he went out and tried for soccer, and ended up on the varsity team. And he's just everything he did, he was great at. And so
good.
Like, well, the thing is, you want to
guys.
feel like that, but he was actually a super nice guy.
Yeah.
Like he was
Yeah.
a really nice, good dude, and like super great student, and just. So yeah, I'd rather be like good at everything I try.
Okay. I like it. All right. Would you rather talk like Yoda or breathe like Darth Vader for the rest of your life?
This is a weird one.
Yeah.
I already have enough times. Like you've noticed that I communicate really quickly, and sometimes jump around in my sentences and my string of thought. My people around me already have a hard enough time for that. I'll take the breathing.
To take the break.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
I'll take the breathing.
All right. Okay.
Well, let me ask you: is the breathing like I just make the sound, or I actually have the same breathing impediments?
I would the same sound, so it's just like.
If it's just sound, yeah.
So if it's just sound,
you sound
then
like
I'm gonna pick.
You talk like you,
sound.
Yeah.
But you're having to get that. Yeah,
I can still go for a hike and like not get winded.
But people will go by you and be
I'll take the
you're
breathing.
not Darth Vader. Yeah.
Would you rather be without elbows or without knees?
Elbows.
Yeah, dude.
Quick.
Boom. Yes, because then you could run, but you're not.
Yeah.
No elbows, dude.
Yeah.
How would you? You gotta like have long utensils.
Yeah, and I love leg
That's
day.
a little weird.
And I love leg day, and that would suck.
There we go.
How are you supposed to hold the bar, though, dude?
You can still deadlift with those without.
That's
You
true.
could do the what's the name of the
Can't really hold the bar.
Yeah.
what's the name of the rack? The squat, not the squat rack, but machine.
Leg press.
Where you get on your
Leg
back,
press.
just leg press. Okay.
Leg
press.
All right. Would you rather know how you will die or when you will die?
Ooh. This is like I think a deeper question, and it's just like one of those things because I have a good friend, a good group of friends that we have this big chat group together, and being in COVID times, like with the COVID, like a lot of us have had to deal with death this year in a way that we've never had to ever, right? And so this great group of friends of mine, like we have this conversation a lot, and I would rather know. I don't want to know when I'm going to die.
I want to know how.
I want to know how.
Oh, man, that's.
I don't want to know when, because like if I know when, it's just then like there's this countdown
Take it
clock
down.
that's always sitting.
You're
there.
gonna live differently.
Yeah,
Potentially.
yeah. I would
do
rather
stuff differently, not be yourself.
Yeah, knowing that like now I've only got 22 years and 3 months and whatever.
What if? Yeah.
What if
I'd
you
rather just
knew-
know like hey, you're gonna die at an old age of a heart attack, or you're
But
gonna
what if
have
it was
this.
like
You're gonna
you're
drown.
gonna die in a car accident?
You're gonna drown. I would never even go close to water.
yeah.
It's like, oh, could that be
I-
tomorrow, or is
for
that
me-
going to be in 50? You know what I mean?
For me, I'd
I feel
want
like
to
that
know.
would mess with me more.
Yeah, for me, I'd want to know how.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
I'm not here to change your mind. Would you rather become a cannibal for the rest of your life, or starve to death?
What?
Yeah, you got to
Hold
live your
on.
life, or you're just
You either die of starvation or you just eat humans.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just seems like
That seems like an easy
one.
answer.
Yeah, I'm with you, Brent.
I'd eat humans. Yeah, I'd
Wait,
forget. Yeah.
let me ask you.
Dude, I'm not gonna just
Do I have to do the procurement of said human meat, or is it just like there?
could I order human at the store, like a human sandwich or something, or
Well, it's no.
like I have to kill?
It's only you, right? You can't go to the store and be like, "Hey, I need human." You're the only one that is a cannibal.
So what you're really
hold on,
asking
how
is,
that, then I have to murder? I have to.
are you
You're gonna have to
willing
find
to go
something.
kill a bunch of people to eat? That's the question, right?
Yeah. Are you going to become a cannibal?
What if I'm just gonna do a deal? I'm gonna do a deal with the morgue.
Maybe.
Like we're gonna deal.
Okay.
I don't want to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you rather accidentally send a dirty text to your boss or a sexy voicemail to your mom?
100% accidentally send a dirty text to my boss.
Okay.
Because he would tease me relentlessly forever and ever about it. And it'd be fun. It'd be funny. It'd be cool. But my mom might die.
Okay, this one's a little morbid. Sorry. Would you rather be the person who flips the switch during the execution or be the judge who decides who should get executed?
Ooh. Man, I didn't think I was going to be getting into some like philosophical quandaries here.
There's a couple.
there's
Yeah.
Philosophical quandaries.
Every
Sometimes
once
the
in a while.
questions are more like, do you want like the legs of a duck or the beak of a duck?
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes it's
You want
that's
to
the
find?
direction we go.
Just, I don't know.
It's like
You
you
know,
want to
Somehow,
fight.
yeah, we're giving you some good ones.
Yeah, fight. What is it? The classic internet one is like fight one horse-sized duck,
Yes.
or 100 duck-sized horses,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I'd rather be the judge.
The judge. Okay.
Yep.
I think I'd be the judge too. Would you rather have a pet skunk that sprayed you once a month or a pet porcupine that quilled you once a month?
100%
Have you ever been
porcupine.
Porcupine? Have you ever been
What?
sprayed?
No way.
Yeah, I have a super high
Have you been
tolerance for
sprayed?
pain.
Yeah, but then it'd be like, all you gotta do is take a bath of vinegar or whatever, and then, but you could have like residual. Just,
No, I've been
Like you're pulling
I've been
the quills
sprayed
out?
by a skunk, and like
No
it was.
way.
I could smell it for like 2 weeks.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I'll take the porcupine because that's short. That's like
How many quills are we talking about? One quill?
I don't know.
Or like a
How
like
many will a porcupine?
Something, like a bunch. Right?
I would still take the porcupine. No
What does he say in
what.
Three Amigos? He's like, I don't think that word means what you think it means. When he's talking about a plethora of guns. Do you know what part I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do, but that's not the part. That's from a different movie.
That's from Princess
Oh,
Bride.
I thought he said something.
I don't think that word means what you think it says.
I swear he says something like that in Three Amigos, doesn't he, or does he not?
No, he
Maybe
doesn't. But that is Princess Bride with
I'm
Three
twisted.
Amigos together.
Okay, that'd be a great
But that's
movie.
Still two great movies.
Yeah, absolutely. But he does ask him if we have a plethora of piñatas.
Yes, piñatas. Okay, would you rather still be bathed by your mom or your grandmother?
Oh, my mom. That's fine. like,
no problem.
well, yeah. My grandma was one of those women who was just like so prim and proper, and just like, even when she was like 94 years old, would dye her hair every Wednesday and that kind of stuff. That I can't imagine ever putting her through that.
Yeah. All right. Would you rather only to be able to have one child, or you have to have 10?
You have 1 or 10?
Yeah.
Oh, this sucks because
I've got 3.
I have 4. Like, we already have kids. I think if you didn't have kids, this would be an easy answer.
Yeah, totally. If I didn't have kids, it would be 1. But
you can't go from, you're getting rid of your kids? We're not saying necessarily we're getting rid of our kids. We're just saying if you went back to the beginning.
Yeah. You're not.
And plus,
your kids
like,
aren't disappearing. But.
I have 3, and like it's just been crazy, and it's insane, and it's stressful.
No way in
It's all
hell you're
these-
doing 10, right? It doesn't matter. I mean, who's doing 10 kids?
No one.
No offense to those that have 10.
Yeah.
Well,
Had 10
I grew up in
kids.
a neighborhood that had 10 kids, and like all their kids ended up going to like Harvard and Princeton. And it's like they produced 10 amazing, like highly accomplished people. I'm like, how do you do that?
That's
incredible.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it wouldn't happen in my house.
No, not in my house. Would you rather have to get a massage with peanut butter or maple syrup?
Both.
I feel
Dude,
like
I'm taking it.
I feel like the oils in the peanut butter are gonna do something decent for my skin, so I'll go with peanut
You
butter.
go for okay. I like the way you think.
Yeah.
Okay, this one's kind of similar to what I did, but let's see if it changes. Would you rather accidentally send a nude to your coworkers or to your family?
Family.
Yeah,
Okay.
the nude's a
100%.
different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I figured it'd be the same, but
Yeah.
like accidentally, like your coworkers are like, "Hey, all right, Scott."
I'd be like, okay, guys,
That could be
I
career
officially
ending.
resigned effective
Yeah,
immediately. Peace out. It's been fun.
And it's okay if it's a family.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
What's Christmas gonna be like?
Hey,
It'd be
you
weird.
might be the card that everybody sends.
Awesome. Okay, that was my last one.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
This is
Appreciate you
great.
coming on.
So much.
Yeah, it
Of
was
course,
great.
this is fun.
And cut.